You can't help him, the surgeon snapped, slamming the file shut. Every expert has failed. Emma didn't answer. Her diner apron was dusted with flour, her eyes locked on the boy struggling to lift his spoon. Across the table, his father, Marcus Sinclair, a man whose money could buy everything but mercy, watched her in disbelief. She reached out, guiding the child's trembling hand, with a precision that didn't belong to a waitress. "It's not his strength that's broken," she murmured. "It's his connection." The boy lifted the spoon without spilling a drop. Marcus froze because in that instant he realized the stranger before him wasn't ordinary at all. She was his last hope. "Before we begin, I need to ask you something important. If you don't follow our channel right now, algorithms might keep us apart forever. Your likes, comments, and shares are the only way we can stay connected. Don't let this be our last meeting. Hit that follow button now. Now let's dive into the story." Marcus Sinclair adjusted his Italian silk tie for the third time in 10 minutes, his jaw clenched as he watched his 7-year-old son Timothy struggle with his crutches across the marble floor of Sinclair Medical Center. The irony wasn't lost on him, owning the most advanced private medical facility on the East Coast, yet being powerless to help his own child walk normally. "Mr. Sinclair, the Tokyo investors are waiting in conference room A." His assistant, Rebecca, whispered, her voice barely audible in the sterile hallway, lined with awards and accolades that suddenly felt meaningless. "Tell them I need 5 more minutes." Marcus replied, his steel-gray eyes never leaving Timothy as the boy paused to rest his small hands gripping the crutches with determination that both broke and strengthened his father's heart simultaneously. "Doctor?" Harrison approached with the latest test results, his expression already telegraphing disappointment. The experimental treatment from Switzerland showed no significant improvement. "Marcus, I'm afraid we've exhausted most conventional options." Marcus's hands curled into fists. 3 years of searching, consulting with specialists from Harvard to Mayo Clinic, spending millions on cutting-edge treatments, and still his son faced each day with courage that humbled the most powerful CEO in the city. Timothy's condition, a rare neurological disorder affecting his motor skills, had stumped every expert they'd consulted. "Daddy, can we get lunch at that place with the really good grilled cheese?" Timothy asked, his bright smile masking any frustration he might feel about his limitations. "Of course, buddy. Anything you want," Marcus replied, scooping Timothy into his arms, crutches and all. The boy's laughter echoed through the corridor, a sound more precious than any profit margin Marcus had ever achieved. They arrived at Rosie's Diner 20 minutes later, a modest establishment that Timothy had discovered during one of their medical appointments nearby. Marcus felt overdressed in his $3,000 suit among the vinyl booths and checkered floors, but Timothy's excitement made any discomfort worthwhile. "Welcome to Rosie's Table for 2. The voice was warm, melodious, with an undertone of intelligence that made Marcus look up from his phone for the first time since entering. Emma Thompson stood before them, order pad in hand, her honey-blonde hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore the standard black uniform, but something about her posture suggested she belonged somewhere far more sophisticated than this humble diner. Her emerald eyes held depths that spoke of experiences beyond her apparent 20-some years. "Yes, our usual table by the window," Marcus replied curtly, already reaching for his phone again. "You must be Timothy," Emma said, crouching down to the boy's eye level with natural ease. "I've heard you make the best grilled cheese recommendations in the entire city." Timothy giggled, immediately charmed. "Daddy says I'm an expert because I've tried grilled cheese everywhere. A connoisseur," Emma said seriously, as if discussing fine wine. "That's very impressive. I bet you know exactly how the cheese should melt, don't you? Unless..." As they walked to the table, Marcus noticed Emma's stride, confident, purposeful, almost clinical. She moved with the precision of someone accustomed to high-pressure environments, not the casual gait he'd expect from a small-town waitress. Can I help you with those? Emma asked Timothy, gesturing to his crutches with matter-of-fact kindness rather than the awkward pity most adults displayed. I got it, Timothy said proudly, maneuvering himself into the booth. I'm getting really fast with these. I can see that. Your balance and coordination are excellent, Emma replied, and Marcus caught something in her tone. Not just politeness, but genuine professional assessment. You seem to know a lot about physical therapy for a waitress. Marcus said, his voice carrying an edge of suspicion mixed with curiosity. Emma's expression flickered for just a moment, a shadow passing across her features, before she recovered her professional smile. I've had some experience with mobility challenges, she replied diplomatically. Now, what can I get you gentlemen today? As she took their orders, Marcus found himself studying her hands. They were soft, well-maintained, with calluses in places that suggested activities more complex than carrying plates. When she wrote their order, her penmanship was precise, almost medical in its clarity. Daddy, she's really nice, Timothy whispered after Emma left for the kitchen. Yes, she seems adequate, Marcus replied, though his attention kept drifting toward the kitchen where he could see Emma moving with efficiency that bordered on choreographed. When she returned with their food, Timothy was attempting to open a stubborn packet of crackers, his fine motor skills making the simple task frustratingly difficult. Emma watched for a moment, then sat down beside him. May I show you a trick? She asked gently. Sometimes the angle makes all the difference. She guided Timothy's hands, adjusting his grip with subtle precision that immediately made the task easier. Marcus observed the interaction with growing fascination. Emma's touch was confident, therapeutic, almost like watching a seasoned occupational therapist work with a patient. There you go. You just needed to engage your thumb muscles differently, Emma explained, and Marcus nearly choked on his coffee. Engage thumb muscles wasn't typical waitress vocabulary. Are you sure you're just a server here? Marcus asked directly, his businessman's instincts sensing something wasn't adding up. Emma's cheeks flushed slightly. I serve food. Yes. Is there something wrong with that? Nothing wrong with honest work? Marcus replied, though his tone suggested he wasn't entirely convinced by her answer. You just seem to have some interesting skills. People are full of surprises, Mr. Sinclair, Emma said with a slight smile that could have been interpreted as mysterious or simply polite. The name recognition hit Marcus immediately. I never mentioned my last name. Emma's eyes widened for just a fraction of a second before she recovered. You're Marcus Sinclair. Your picture was in the business section last week, the medical center expansion. Plus, Timothy mentioned you owned several hospitals during his grilled cheese expertise consultation. Smooth recovery, Marcus thought, but not quite smooth enough. This waitress had just revealed she read business news and retained detailed information about medical facilities. His curiosity was rapidly evolving into genuine intrigue. Daddy, can Emma eat with us? Timothy asked suddenly. She knows about thumb muscles and she likes grilled cheese too. Marcus expected Emma to politely decline, but she hesitated, glancing around the nearly empty diner. If your father doesn't mind, I suppose I could take a short break. Please join us. Marcus heard himself saying, surprising himself with the genuine invitation in his voice. As Emma slid into the booth across from them, Marcus noticed the way she automatically assessed Timothy's posture, the subtle adjustments she made to his positioning without drawing attention to it. Every instinct told him this woman was hiding something significant, and Marcus Sinclair had built his empire by trusting his instincts about people. So, Emma, he began, leaning back in his seat with the casual confidence of someone accustomed to getting answers. What brought you to waitressing at Ross's? The question landed like a challenge, and Emma's response would determine whether Marcus's growing suspicions were justified or if he was simply intrigued by an unusually observant server who'd happened to capture his son's heart with genuine kindness. Emma's fork hovered over her salad as Marcus's question hung in the air between them. She could feel his penetrating gaze analyzing every micro-expression, every pause. Timothy, oblivious to the underlying tension, was happily demolishing his grilled cheese with the unself-conscious enthusiasm only children possess. "Life doesn't always go according to plan," Emma replied carefully, taking a measured bite to buy herself time. "Sometimes we end up in places we never expected." That's remarkably philosophical for someone serving comfort food. Marcus observed his tone carrying just enough warmth to soften what could have been an accusation. "I prefer to think of it as adaptable," Emma shot back with a slight smile. "It's amazing how much you can learn about people when you're not sitting behind a mahogany desk making assumptions about their intelligence based on their job title." Marcus raised an eyebrow, clearly not expecting the subtle verbal jab. "Touché, though I'd argue that curiosity about someone who discusses thumb muscle engagement with 7-year-olds isn't quite the same as making assumptions." "Fair point," Emma conceded, and Timothy looked up from his sandwich, sensing the adult conversation had taken an interesting turn. "Are you guys having one of those grown-up discussions where you say one thing but mean something else?" Timothy asked, with startling perceptiveness. Emma laughed, a genuine sound that transformed her entire face. "Your son is exceptionally bright, Mr. Sinclair. He gets it from his mother," Marcus replied automatically, then felt the familiar tightness in his chest that always accompanied thoughts of Claire. She'd been gone for 3 years, but the grief still ambushed him at unexpected moments. Emma noticed the shift immediately. "I'm sorry for your loss," she said quietly, with the kind of empathy that suggested personal experience with grief. Marcus studied her face, surprised by the genuine understanding he saw there. "How did you know I was talking about loss?" The way your voice changed the slight tension in your shoulders. "Some things are universal regardless of tax bracket," Emma replied, then seemed to catch herself being too observant again. "You notice a lot for someone who supposedly just brings food to tables," Marcus said, but his tone had shifted from suspicious to intrigued. Timothy had been following the conversation with the intensity of a child who sensed something important was happening. "Emma, do you know about helping people who can't walk good?" The question was innocent, but Emma's reaction was immediate and telling her entire body tensed for a moment, her fingers gripping her fork just a bit too tightly. Marcus filed the response away mentally. "I know a little," Emma said carefully. "Why do you ask, sweetheart? Because sometimes my legs don't work like other kids and the doctors can't fix it, but when you helped me with the crackers, it felt different. Better somehow." Marcus watched Emma's expression shift through several emotions. Surprise, something that looked like recognition, and then a carefully controlled professional detachment that seemed oddly familiar. Emma said gently, "Would you mind if I looked at how you hold things, just to see if there are any little tricks that might help be?" She was asking permission from both Timothy and Marcus, but her voice had taken on a tone of quiet authority that made Marcus sit up straighter. This was not a waitress making conversation with a customer. This was someone with actual expertise making a clinical assessment. "Sure," Timothy said eagerly, while Marcus nodded, his consent fascination overriding caution. Emma moved to Timothy's side of the booth, her movements precise and purposeful. She watched him pick up his sandwich, observed his grip on his cup, made mental notes that Marcus could practically see forming behind her focused expression. "Timothy, can you make a fist for me?" "Good. Now wiggle just your fingers while keeping your thumbs still." "Perfect." Her voice had shifted entirely. Warm but professional, encouraging but analytical. "Your fine motor control is actually quite good," she continued, and Marcus felt his breath catch. Fine motor control was exactly what Dr. Harrison had discussed during their last appointment, the specific area where Timothy struggled most. "Try this," Emma said, showing Timothy how to position his hand differently when reaching for his cup. "Engage from your shoulder. Let the strength flow down through your arm to your fingers instead of trying to force it from your wrist." The change in Timothy's movement was subtle but immediate. His reach was steadier, more controlled. Marcus leaned forward, hardly believing what he was seeing. "How did you know to do that?" Marcus asked, his voice tight with controlled emotion. Emma froze, realizing she'd revealed too much. I've helped people before with similar challenges." "What people?" "Where, and don't tell me you learned this from serving coffee and pie?" Marcus pressed his paternal desperation, overriding any concern about politeness. Timothy was practicing his new grip technique, delighted with the improvement, unaware of the charged atmosphere developing between the adults. "It's complicated," Emma said, starting to withdraw. "My son's condition is complicated too," Marcus replied, his voice carrying the weight of 3 years of desperate searching. "So please help me understand how a waitress knows more about his motor skills than specialists from Johns Hopkins." Emma looked at Timothy, still happily experimenting with his improved dexterity, then back at Marcus. Something in his expression, raw hope mixed with barely controlled desperation, seemed to reach her. "I used to work in pediatric rehabilitation," she said quietly. Before I came here, Marcus felt his world shift slightly. "Used to work? Why did you stop?" "Because sometimes the medical world isn't as pure as people believe," Emma replied, her voice carrying a bitter edge that spoke of personal betrayal. "That's cryptic." "It's honest," Emma countered. "Not everything can be solved with money and connections, Mr. Sinclair, even when you own medical centers." The challenge in her voice sparked something in Marcus, not anger but recognition. Here was someone who spoke to him without deference or manipulation, someone who saw through his wealth and position to address him as simply another person seeking help for his child. "You're right," he said, surprising both of them. "Money can't cure Timothy. 3 years and millions of dollars have proven that. But knowledge can help. Experience can make a difference. And right now, you seem to have both." Emma stared at him clearly, not expecting the admission of vulnerability from someone with his reputation for control and dominance. "What exactly are you asking me?" she said cautiously. "I'm asking you to help my son," Marcus replied simply. "Whatever it costs, whatever you need, whatever went wrong in your past, none of that matters if you can make Timothy's life better." Timothy looked up at both adults, sensing the gravity of the moment. "Emma, would you help me walk better? I promise I'll be good and do exactly what you say." Emma's composure finally cracked slightly, emotion flickering across her features. "Timothy, you're already perfect exactly as you are. Any help I might offer would just be tools to make things easier. So you'll help?" Timothy asked hopefully. Emma looked at Marcus, then back at Timothy, clearly wrestling with a decision that involved more than just physical therapy techniques. "I need to think about it," she said finally. "This is more complicated than you might realize." Marcus reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card, writing his personal number on the back. "Take all the time you need, but please consider it. Whatever happened before doesn't have to define what happens next." Emma took the card, her fingers brushing his briefly. The contact was electric, unexpected, and both of them pulled back slightly in surprise at the jolt of awareness. "I should get back to work," Emma said, her professional mask sliding back into place but not quite hiding the flush in her cheeks. As she cleared their plates, Marcus found himself memorizing details about her, the way she moved, the careful control of her expressions, the obvious intelligence she was trying to downplay. Timothy was already asking when they could come back to see Emma again. Marcus Sinclair was accustomed to getting what he wanted through persistence and resources. But something told him that Emma Thompson would require a different approach entirely, one that might challenge everything he thought he knew about himself and what he was willing to sacrifice for the people he loved. 3 days passed before Marcus received Emma's call. He was in the middle of a board meeting discussing quarterly projections with investors from 3 different continents when his personal phone buzzed. Seeing an unfamiliar number, he almost ignored it until something made him step out of the conference room. Mr. Sinclair, this is Emma Thompson from Rosie's Diner. Her voice was different over the phone, more formal, carefully controlled. Marcus felt his pulse quicken unexpectedly. Emma, I was beginning to wonder if you'd decided against helping Timothy. I've been thinking about it, she replied. A lot. If I agree to work with him, there would need to be conditions. Marcus almost smiled. Of course there would be conditions. In his experience, the most valuable people always had non-negotiable terms. I'm listening. First, we do this properly, not as a favor or charity case, but as a professional therapeutic relationship. I'll need to see his complete medical history, consult with his current doctors, and establish a real treatment plan. Done. What else? Second, we work at neutral locations. Not your house, not the medical center, somewhere Timothy can feel comfortable and relaxed. Marcus paused, intrigued by her insistence on boundaries. Any suggestions? There's a community center about 10 minutes from the diner. They have an excellent physical therapy space that they rent by the hour. Clean, well-equipped, but not intimidating. And the third condition? Marcus asked, sensing there was more. Emma hesitated. My past isn't up for discussion. You hired me to help Timothy, not to satisfy your curiosity about why I'm working as a waitress instead of doing what I used to do. The slight break in her voice told Marcus everything he needed to know. Whatever had driven Emma from pediatric rehabilitation to serving coffee had been traumatic enough to leave lasting scars. Agreed, he said simply. When can we start? Saturday morning, 9:00 a.m. I'll text you the address. Marcus hung up, feeling a mixture of hope and anticipation that had nothing to do with Timothy's treatment and everything to do with seeing Emma Thompson in her element. Saturday morning arrived crisp and clear. Marcus had barely slept, alternating between excitement about potential progress for Timothy and an inexplicable nervousness about seeing Emma again. Timothy, meanwhile, had been talking about nothing but Emma the helper since they'd left the diner. The community center was modest but well-maintained, housed in a converted warehouse with high ceilings and natural light streaming through skylights. Marcus expected to wait to go through typical preliminary discussions, maybe fill out paperwork. Instead, he found Emma in the physical therapy room wearing black athletic clothing that revealed toned arms and an athletic build that spoke of serious fitness training. Her hair was pulled back in a functional ponytail, and she was reviewing what appeared to be a detailed folder of documents. You've been busy, Marcus observed, noting the professional setup, exercise mats, various therapy tools, and what looked like a carefully planned session outline. I told you if we're doing this, we're doing it right, Emma replied, looking up with a smile that was warmer than her phone voice had suggested. Timothy, are you ready to do some work? Yes. What kind of work? Timothy asked eagerly, his crutches tucked under his arms. The fun kind, Emma said with a wink. But first I need to understand exactly how your body works right now. Is that okay? For the next 30 minutes, Marcus watched Emma conduct the most thorough assessment of Timothy's condition he'd ever witnessed. She was patient, but precise, encouraging, but analytical, guiding Timothy through movements and exercises while making detailed notes. Her expertise was undeniable. She identified muscle weaknesses and compensatory patterns that previous therapists had missed, asked questions about Timothy's daily activities that revealed insights no doctor had considered, and most remarkably managed to make the entire evaluation feel like an elaborate game. Timothy, you're doing fantastic, Emma said as they finished the assessment portion. Now I want to show you something cool. She guided Timothy to a mat and showed him a series of exercises that looked deceptively simple but were clearly designed to address his specific neurological challenges. What impressed Marcus most was how Emma modified her approach in real-time, reading Timothy's responses and adjusting accordingly. Feel the difference when you engage your core first? Emma asked, as Timothy completed a movement with notably better control than his baseline. Yeah, it's like my whole body works together instead of just my arms. Timothy said, his excitement genuine. Marcus felt his throat tighten with emotion. In 30 minutes, Emma had helped Timothy achieve better motor control than months of conventional therapy. But more than that, she'd given Timothy confidence, made him feel capable rather than limited. Emma, Marcus said during a break while Timothy was getting water. "Where exactly did you train?" "This level of expertise doesn't happen overnight." Emma's expression shifted, the professional mask slipping back into place. "I told you my background wasn't up for discussion, even when it's clearly world-class. Timothy's made more progress in one session than he has in months of traditional therapy. Progress that could disappear if we don't maintain consistency and appropriate boundaries," Emma replied firmly, but Marcus caught the flash of pride in her eyes. Their conversation was interrupted by Timothy's excited voice. Emma watched this. He was attempting the core engagement exercise on his own. His technique imperfect, but his determination absolute. "Excellent work, Timothy. You're getting the hang of it," Emma encouraged, then turned back to Marcus with a softer expression. "He's remarkable, you know. His neuroplasticity is exceptional for his condition." "Neuroplasticity," Marcus repeated. "That's not basic physical therapy terminology." Emma realized she'd revealed more specialized knowledge and looked away. "I read a lot." Emma, Marcus said gently, "Whatever happened in your past, whatever made you leave medicine, it doesn't change the fact that you have a gift. Timothy responds to you like no other therapist we've worked with. Sometimes gifts come with prices that are too high to pay." Emma replied quietly, watching Timothy practice his exercises with focused determination. Marcus wanted to push for more information, but something in Emma's tone warned him off. Instead, he said, "What matters is that you're helping him now. Thank you." Emma looked surprised by his restraint, as if she'd expected more interrogation about her background. "You're welcome. Same time next week." "Absolutely." And Emma, whatever you used to do, wherever you trained, you're exactly what Timothy needs now. As they packed up to leave, Timothy hugged Emma goodbye with uninhibited affection. "Emma, you're the best helper ever. Will you be my friend too, not just my teacher?" "Of course, sweetheart," Emma replied, her professional demeanor melting completely in the face of Timothy's innocent request. Marcus watched the interaction, struck by how naturally Emma connected with Timothy, how her walls came down around his son's unguarded enthusiasm. He found himself wondering what it would take to earn that same unguarded response from the mysterious woman who was slowly working miracles with his child. Walking to their cars, Marcus made a decision that surprised him. Instead of pressing Emma for answers about her past, he would earn her trust the same way she was earning Timothy's progress, gradually, consistently, and with genuine respect for the boundaries she needed to maintain. But as he watched her drive away in a modest sedan that somehow seemed as carefully chosen as everything else about her presentation, Marcus couldn't. Sinclair found himself hoping that trust would eventually include letting him understand the fascinating guarded woman who was bringing light back into his son's world. The anonymous email arrived on a Tuesday morning, sliding into Marcus's inbox between quarterly reports and merger proposals, like a poisoned dart aimed directly at his heart. The subject line was, "Clinical professional regarding your son's new therapist. Urgent medical ethics concern." Marcus almost deleted it as spam until he saw Emma's name in the preview text. His blood ran cold as he opened the message. "Mr. Sinclair, I feel compelled to warn you about Emma Richardson currently using the alias Thompson. 3 years ago, Dr. Richardson was stripped of her medical license following a catastrophic patient death at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. Her experimental treatment protocol resulted in permanent paralysis for an 8-year-old patient. The family's lawsuit revealed gross negligence and falsified research data. I'm shocked to learn she's somehow gained access to your son. Please protect Timothy before history repeats itself." A concerned medical professional attached were what appeared to be court documents, medical board findings, and news articles detailing a malpractice case that had destroyed Emma's career and reputation. The photos showed a different woman, professionally dressed, confident, standing beside research awards and speaking at medical conferences, but the face was unmistakably Emma's. Marcus's hands shook as he read through the documents. Emma Richardson had been a rising star in pediatric neurology, a prodigy who'd graduated medical school at 24, and was conducting groundbreaking research on childhood motor disorders. The case that destroyed her involved a treatment she developed, administered without proper authorization, resulting in a child's permanent paralysis. The betrayal cut deeper than any business deception Marcus had ever experienced. Emma hadn't just lied about her past, she'd actively deceived him about the very expertise she was using to treat Timothy. How could he have been so blind? How could he have trusted his son's care to someone who'd already destroyed another child's life? His phone buzzed. Emma's name appeared on the screen, a text confirming Saturday's session. The casual normally of her message felt obscene in light of what he'd just discovered. "Hi, Marcus. Looking forward to Saturday. Timothy's progress has been remarkable. I have some new exercises that should help with his bilateral coordination. See you at 9:00. Emma Marcus stared at the message, fury and heartbreak wearing in his chest. She was still maintaining the fiction that she was simply a former pediatric rehabilitation worker instead of a disgraced doctor whose negligence had ruined a family. He called Emma immediately, his business voice cold and controlled, despite the emotional tornado raging inside him. "Emma, we need to talk now, not Saturday." Now her voice shifted instantly, picking up on his tone. "Marcus, what's wrong? Is Timothy okay?" "Timothy's fine. It's you. I'm concerned about Dr. Richardson." The silence that followed stretched so long Marcus thought the call had dropped. When Emma finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "How did you find out someone who cares about my son's safety sent me the truth about your previous career? The question is why you didn't. Marcus, please let me explain." "Explain what? How you lied about your identity. How you've been treating my son with techniques developed by someone who paralyzed another child. How you've been pretending to be a simple waitress when you're actually a disgraced doctor who lost her license for malpractice. It wasn't malpractice." Emma's voice cracked with 3 years of suppressed pain. "The treatment was working. The family was desperate, just like you are. I was trying to save that little girl's mobility, not destroy it." The medical board disagreed. So did the court system. So did the family whose daughter will never walk again because of your arrogance. Emma's sob was audible through the phone. "You don't understand what really happened. The case, the evidence, it was all manipulated. I was set up by people who wanted to steal my research, destroy my credibility so they could claim my work as their own." "That's convenient," Marcus replied, though something in Emma's desperation gave him pause. "Blame a conspiracy when your own negligence destroyed a child's life." "I have proof," Emma said desperately. "Documents that show what really happened, who was really responsible. I've been carrying this secret for 3 years, afraid to trust anyone, because the people who betrayed me have connections everywhere, including in your world." Marcus felt a flicker of uncertainty, but the fury was too strong. "Even if that were true, you lied to me. You put my son at risk by hiding your history. How am I supposed to trust anything you say now? Because you've seen the results," Emma pleaded. "Timothy's progress is real. My techniques work because they're based on sound science, not the lies that destroyed my career. Please." "Marcus, don't let their conspiracy hurt Timothy by depriving him of treatment that's actually helping." "The treatment stops now," Marcus said with finality. "Don't contact us again. Don't come near my son. If you attempt any further contact, I'll have security remove you personally." He ended the call before Emma could respond, then sat in his office chair feeling hollowed out and betrayed. Through his floor-to-ceiling windows, the city spread below him like a kingdom he no longer wanted to rule. Everything he'd built, all his success and power, felt meaningless in the face of this deception. But even as he tried to process his anger, Marcus couldn't forget Timothy's excitement about his sessions with Emma, the genuine progress his son had made, the light in Timothy's eyes when he talked about his helper, Emma. If Emma was truly dangerous, if her treatment was harmful, wouldn't Timothy's condition have worsened rather than improved? The doubt was a splinter in his mind, growing larger with each passing hour. By evening, Marcus found himself reviewing the anonymous email, more carefully noting inconsistencies in the attached documents, questioning the convenient timing of this revelation, just as Timothy was making unprecedented progress. His private investigator, Jackson Mills, arrived at Marcus's penthouse at 9:00 p.m. with a preliminary report that would change everything. Marcus, whoever sent you this information, has connections to some very sophisticated people. The email was routed through servers in 3 different countries, but I managed to trace it back to a law firm that specializes in medical patent disputes. What does that have to do with Emma Richardson? Jackson spread several documents across Marcus's dining table. Dr. Emma Richardson was working on revolutionary treatment protocols for childhood neurological disorders. Her research was worth millions, potentially billions, if developed into standardized treatments. The day before her malpractice case went to trial, 3 senior colleagues at her hospital filed patents for treatments suspiciously similar to her work. Marcus studied the patent filings, his business mind immediately recognizing the pattern. They wanted her research. More than that, they needed her discredited so thoroughly that she could never challenge their theft. The malpractice case was their weapon. I'm still digging, but preliminary evidence suggests the patient's deterioration wasn't caused by Dr. Richardson's treatment. It was caused by a secondary medication administered by another doctor after her protocol had already shown positive results. The truth hit Marcus like a physical blow. Emma hadn't been lying about a conspiracy. She'd been the victim of one. Her colleagues had destroyed her career and reputation to steal her life's work, then systematically buried evidence that would have exonerated her. Jackson, I need you to get me everything. Every document, every witness statement, every piece of evidence that was suppressed in the original case, and I need it fast. Marcus, this kind of investigation could take months. You have 48 hours? Marcus interrupted, his voice carrying the authority of a man accustomed to moving mountains. Money is no object. Call in every favor, hire every expert, but I need proof of Emma Richardson's innocence by Thursday. After Jackson left, Marcus stood alone in his penthouse, staring out at the glittering city lights and wrestling with the magnitude of his mistake. He'd accused Emma of being a fraud and a danger to his son, when in reality she was a brilliant doctor whose career had been destroyed by the same kind of corporate greed and manipulation that he knew all too well from his own business world. But the damage was done. Emma was gone. Timothy's progress would halt, and Marcus had lost something precious that he was only now beginning to understand, not just his son's miraculous therapist, but the woman who had somehow become essential to both their lives in ways that transcended medicine. The next morning, Timothy's excited questions about Saturday's session with Emma felt like daggers in Marcus's heart. How could he explain to his 7-year-old son that the woman who'd given him hope and progress had been driven away by his father's fear and prejudice? How could he admit that his need to control and protect had destroyed the best thing that had happened to their family since Claire's death? As he watched Timothy practice the exercises Emma had taught him, maintaining his improved motor control even in her absence, Marcus made a decision that would determine the course of all their lives. He would find the truth, expose the conspiracy that had destroyed Emma's career, and somehow convince the woman he'd wronged so deeply to forgive him. But first he had to face the possibility that his accusation and rejection had finally driven Emma beyond his reach, that the second chance at healing and love she'd offered might be lost forever because of his failure to trust in the face of fear. By Thursday evening, Marcus had assembled a war room in his private conference area. Documents covered every surface: medical records, court transcripts, financial statements, and phone records that painted a picture of corruption so systematic it took his breath away. Jackson Mills had worked 48 hours straight with a team of investigators, forensic accountants, and medical experts to uncover the truth. Dr. Patricia Hendress, Emma's former department head, had orchestrated the entire conspiracy with surgical precision. She'd identified Emma's groundbreaking research on neuroplasticity treatments, recognized its commercial potential, and systematically set about stealing it. The plan had required destroying Emma's credibility so completely that she could never challenge the theft. The patient who'd been paralyzed, Sarah Martinez, hadn't suffered complications from Emma's treatment. She'd been given an experimental muscle relaxant by Dr. Friss, without Emma's knowledge or consent, a medication that interacted catastrophically with Emma's therapy protocol. Dr. Ricks had then falsified records to make it appear that Emma had administered the conflicting drug herself. "Marcus, look at this," Jackson said, pointing to financial records spread across the table. 3 days after Emma's license was revoked, Ricks received a research grant worth $12 million to develop innovative neuroplasticity treatments for children. The grant proposal contains entire sections of Emma's original work, word for word. Marcus felt sick. Emma had been telling the truth about being set up, and he'd been too blinded by fear to believe her. What about Sarah Martinez? Where is she now? That's where this gets interesting. The family moved to Portland 6 months after the settlement. I tracked them down. Sarah's mother agreed to speak with us. What she told my investigator changes everything. Jackson played a recording on his laptop. A woman's voice, heavy with guilt and regret, filled the room. We knew something wasn't right about the case. Dr. Richardson had been helping Sarah for months, and she was getting better. The treatment was working. Then suddenly she got worse, and Dr. Hendricks said it was because Dr. Richardson had made a mistake with Sarah's medication. But Sarah kept asking for Dr. Richardson, kept saying she wanted her real doctor back. The lawyers convinced us that Dr. Richardson was dangerous, that we needed to sue to protect other children. They promised us money for Sarah's care, but mostly they just wanted us to stay quiet and disappear. Marcus closed his eyes, imagining Emma carrying the weight of this false accusation for 3 years, believing she'd destroyed a child's life when she'd actually been trying to save it. "There's more," Jackson continued. "I found Dr. Richardson's attorney from the original case. The man was scared, Marcus, really scared. He admitted that evidence was suppressed. Witnesses were intimidated, and he was basically forced to accept a plea deal that stripped Emma of her license in exchange for avoiding criminal charges." "Oh, criminal charges that were completely fabricated," Marcus said grimly. "Exactly. Dr. Ricks has connections throughout the medical establishment. She's destroyed at least 3 other promising researchers over the past decade using similar tactics. Emma was just the most successful victim." Marcus stood up, pacing to his windows. The city lights below reminded him of Emma's eyes that first day at the diner, bright with intelligence and shadowed with pain he'd been too blind to understand. "Where is Emma now?" "That's the problem. She's disappeared. Quit her job at the diner, packed up her apartment, left no forwarding address. My sources think she's planning to leave the country. Maybe start over somewhere. Her reputation can't follow her." The thought of Emma fleeing, of losing her forever because of his betrayal, galvanized Marcus into action. "Find her. I don't care what it costs or how many people you have to hire. Find Emma Richardson and bring her home. Marcus, even if we find her, getting her to trust you again after what happened. I'll face that when the time comes. Right now, I need to focus on clearing her name and making sure the people who destroyed her life face justice." Marcus spent the next 3 days orchestrating what he privately called Operation Redemption. He used every connection, every favor owed, every ounce of influence he'd accumulated over years in business to systematically dismantle the conspiracy that had destroyed Emma's career. First, he hired the best medical malpractice attorney in the country to file motions for Emma's license reinstatement based on new evidence. Then, he arranged for Sarah Martinez's family to be relocated closer to specialized treatment centers, with all expenses paid, and a trust fund established for Sarah's continued care. The most satisfying part was arranging Dr. Patricia Hricks's downfall. Marcus's team presented evidence of her research theft and medical fraud to the State Medical Board, the FBI's white-collar crime division, and 3 different medical journals that had published her stolen work. By Friday afternoon, Hrieks had been arrested, her medical license suspended, and her stolen research grants frozen pending investigation. But none of it mattered if Marcus couldn't find Emma and convince her to forgive him. The breakthrough came on Saturday morning. Jackson called at dawn with news that made Marcus's heart race. "I found her. She's in a small town called Cedar Falls, about 2 hours north of here. She's staying at a bed and breakfast, apparently trying to decide whether to take a job offer from a clinic in Vancouver." Marcus was in his car within 10 minutes, driving through the early morning darkness toward a confrontation that would determine the rest of his life. He'd prepared speeches, practiced apologies, rehearsed explanations of the evidence that proved her innocence. But as he pulled into the parking lot of the Cedarwood Inn, all his preparations crumbled into a single desperate truth. He loved Emma Richardson, and he'd nearly destroyed them both by failing to trust in that love when it mattered most. Emma was sitting on the inn's front porch swing, wrapped in a cream-colored sweater and holding a cup of coffee. She looked smaller than he remembered, more fragile, as if the weight of 3 years of false accusations had finally broken something essential inside her. When she saw him approaching, her expression didn't change. No surprise, no anger, just a weary resignation that broke Marcus's heart. "How did you find me?" she asked quietly. "I have good investigators," Marcus replied, settling onto the porch steps where he could see her face clearly. "Emma, I need you to know that I know the truth now about Dr. Hrieks, about what really happened to Sarah Martinez, about how you were set up to take the blame for someone else's greed and negligence." Emma's coffee cup trembled slightly in her hands. "It doesn't matter now. The damage is done. It does matter. Hrieks has been arrested. The medical board is reviewing your case for full reinstatement. Sarah Martinez's family wants to meet with you to apologize for their part in the cover-up. Your research is being credited to you, not to the people who stole it." For the first time since he'd arrived, Emma showed emotion, a flicker of hope quickly suppressed. "Even if all of that's true, it doesn't change what you said to me. How quickly you believed I was a danger to Timothy. How easily you threw away what we were building together." Marcus felt the truth of her words like a physical blow. "You're right. I failed you when you needed trust most. I let fear override everything I knew about your character, your integrity, your love for Timothy. I'm not asking you to forget that or pretend it didn't happen." "Then what are you asking?" Marcus looked into Emma's green eyes, seeing past the pain to the woman who'd brought miracles into his and Timothy's lives. "I'm asking you to give me the chance to prove that I can be worthy of your trust. I'm asking you to come home and help me raise Timothy in a world where brilliant, caring people like you are protected and valued, instead of destroyed by corrupt systems." Emma was quiet for a long time, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of gold and pink. Timothy must be wondering what happened to his sessions. He asks about you every day. He's been practicing the exercises you taught him, maintaining his progress even without you there to guide him. But Marcus paused, then decided to risk complete honesty. "But it's not just Timothy who needs you, Emma. I need you. Not as Timothy's therapist or as Dr. Richardson, the brilliant researcher. I need Emma, the woman who challenges me to be better, who sees through my wealth and power to the man I want to become." Emma set down her coffee cup and looked directly at him for the first time since he'd arrived. "Marcus, what are you really saying?" "I'm saying that I love you," Marcus replied simply. I fell in love with you in Roz's diner when you made Timothy laugh while helping him with his crackers. I fell deeper in love watching you work with him, seeing your passion and expertise shine through every interaction, and I realized how much I loved you when I thought I'd lost you forever because of my own fear and stupidity. Emma's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling now, the first genuine smile he'd seen since he'd destroyed everything with his accusations and suspicion. "You know this is crazy, right?" she said softly. "A CEO and a disgraced doctor turned waitress. The society pages will have a field day." Marcus grinned, feeling lighter than he had in days. "Let them talk. I own half the media companies in the city anyway. But Emma, if we're going to do this, I have one condition." "Oh, now you have conditions," Emma asked, with a hint of her old teasing tone. "I want you to be Timothy's doctor, not just his therapist. I want you to have your own research lab, your own team, the resources to continue the work that was stolen from you. I want the whole world to know that Dr. Emma Richardson is the brilliant woman who not only healed my son, but somehow managed to heal his broken father as well." Emma stood up from the porch swing and walked over to Marcus, cupping his face in her hands with the same gentle precision she'd used to guide Timothy through his exercises. "That sounds like a pretty good deal, Mr. Sinclair," she said, her voice warm with the love and trust that had almost been lost forever. "But I have a condition, too. Anything. Next time someone tries to convince you that I'm dangerous or untrustworthy, you come to me first. You ask me for the truth instead of making assumptions. Can you promise me that Marcus covered her hands with his, looking into the eyes of the woman who'd become his second chance at everything that mattered? I promise. And Emma, there won't be a next time. From now on, when the whole world is against you, I'll be standing right beside you fighting for us." When Emma kissed him soft and sweet on the porch of a small town in Marcus, finally understood what he'd been searching for his entire adult life. Not just success or security or even love, but partnership. Someone who would challenge him, trust him, and build something beautiful together from the ashes of their separate heartbreaks. They had work to do. Timothy was waiting for them both, and Emma's career needed to be fully restored. But for now, holding the woman he loved in the golden light of a new day, Marcus Sinclair finally felt like he'd come home. 6 months later, Marcus stood in the ballroom of the Grand Metropolitan Hotel, watching Emma work the crowd at her reinstatement celebration with the same natural grace she'd once brought to serving coffee at Roz's diner. The medical community had gathered to officially welcome back Dr. Emma Richardson, whose groundbreaking research was now being implemented in pediatric hospitals across the country. "She's remarkable," Dr. Harrison commented, appearing at Marcus's elbow with 2 glasses of champagne. "I've been practicing medicine for 30 years, and I've never seen anyone command respect the way she does. Hard to believe 6 months ago she was hiding her identity in a diner." Marcus accepted the champagne but kept his eyes on Emma as she spoke with a group of neurologists about her latest research protocols. She wasn't hiding. She was protecting herself from people who would have destroyed her all over again if they'd found her. "And now she has someone to protect her while she changes the world," Marcus replied with quiet satisfaction. "Plus, she's about to become a Sinclair, which comes with its own armor." Dr. Harrison chuckled. "Speaking of which, have you told her about Timothy's latest progress reports? His improvement is being documented for publication in 3 different medical journals." Marcus smiled, remembering Timothy's excitement that morning when Emma had shown him his latest assessment scores. His son was now testing within normal ranges for fine motor control, gross motor coordination, and bilateral integration. The crutches had been retired 2 months ago, replaced by a confidence that transformed everything about how Timothy moved through the world. She knows, but what she doesn't know is what I have planned for tonight. Across the room, Emma caught his eye and smiled the same warm, knowing smile that had first captured his attention in that humble diner. She excused herself from her conversation and made her way through the crowd toward him. "Are you hiding from your own celebration?" she asked, slipping her hand into his with natural ease. "I'm not hiding," I'm plotting, Marcus replied, leading her toward the hotel's rooftop garden. There's something I want to show you. The rooftop had been transformed into a private paradise with string lights twinkling among carefully arranged flowers and a single table set for two. Timothy was already waiting, dressed in his best suit and grinning with barely contained excitement. "Surprise!" Timothy called out as they approached. "Dad said I could help with the special dinner." Emma looked between Marcus and Timothy, clearly sensing something important was happening. "What's all this?" Marcus guided her to the table where 3 place settings indicated this was meant to be a family affair. "Timothy and I wanted to celebrate your reinstatement properly, away from the crowds, just the 3 of us." As they settled into their seats, Timothy could barely contain his excitement. "Emma, guess what Dad says? You're going to be my real mom now, not just my doctor." Emma's eyes widened, looking to Marcus for explanation. He reached across the table and took her hand, his thumb tracing gentle circles on her palm. "I know we've talked about getting married," Marcus began carefully. "But I realized there was something we'd never properly discussed. Timothy's been asking when you're going to officially become his mom, and I realized I'd been thinking about this all wrong." Emma's voice was soft with emotion. "What do you mean? I mean that I've been planning a traditional proposal, thinking about romantic settings and perfect speeches, but our love story was never traditional, Emma. It started in a diner with a little boy who needed help, and a woman brave enough to provide it despite her own pain. It grew through trust and betrayal and forgiveness. It's not a fairy tale romance. It's something better. It's real." Marcus slipped from his chair and knelt beside Emma. But instead of producing a ring, he gestured to Timothy, who ran to join them. "Emma Richardson," Marcus continued, "will you marry us, not just me, but our family? Will you be Timothy's mother and my wife, and the partner I want beside me for every challenge and triumph that comes our way?" Timothy pulled a small velvet box from his pocket with ceremonial seriousness. "We picked it out together," he announced proudly. "Dad said it had to be perfect for the perfect mom." Emma opened the box to reveal a stunning emerald-cut diamond surrounded by smaller emeralds that matched her eyes perfectly. But what made her cry wasn't the beauty of the ring. It was the way Timothy immediately threw his arms around her neck, whispering, "Please say yes, Emma. I already told everyone at school you're my mom." Yes, Emma managed through her tears. Yes to marrying you. Yes to being Timothy's mother. Yes to this beautiful, complicated, perfect family we've somehow created together. As Marcus slipped the ring onto Emma's finger, Timothy cheered with the uninhibited joy that had been missing from their lives before Emma had walked into that diner 6 months ago. "There's one more thing," Marcus said, producing an official-looking document from his jacket. "I've established the Richardson Foundation for Pediatric Research with an initial endowment of $50 million. You'll have complete autonomy to pursue whatever research you think is most important, with resources to hire the best team in the world." Emma stared at the document, then at Marcus, then at Timothy, who was still clinging to her with the fierce affection of a child who'd found his missing piece. "Marcus, this is too much. The foundation, the research lab, all of it." "It's not enough," Marcus interrupted gently. "Emma, you saved my son's life and gave me back my faith in love and partnership. This foundation is just the beginning of what I want to build with you. We're going to change how the world treats children like Timothy, how it supports brilliant researchers like you, how it protects people who dare to innovate and care more about healing than profit." Later that evening, after Timothy had been tucked into bed with stories about their upcoming wedding and promises that nothing would change except that Emma would officially be his mother, Marcus and Emma stood on the penthouse balcony looking out over the city that had brought them together. "Do you ever think about that first day at Rossi's?" Emma asked her engagement ring, catching the city lights. "Every day," Marcus replied, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "I was so arrogant, so certain I could control everything with money and influence. I had no idea that a waitress with mysterious skills and a guarded heart would teach me what real power looks like." Emma leaned back against his chest, finally at peace with her past and excited about their future. And I never imagined that a demanding CEO with trust issues would become the man who would fight to clear my name and give me back my career and my confidence. We're quite a pair, Marcus murmured against her hair. The disgraced doctor and the workaholic CEO brought together by a little boy who needed us both to become whole. Speaking of Timothy, Emma said with a mischievous smile, he's been asking when he's going to get a little brother or sister. Apparently having one parent who's a doctor and one who owns hospitals means we should be able to make perfect babies. Marcus laughed, the sound rich with happiness and possibility. That boy has been through enough medical terminology to last a lifetime. But Emma, when you're ready, when we're ready as a family, I can't think of anything I'd love more than watching you bring new life into this world we're building together. 6 months after that, Dr. Emma Sinclair stood in the research lab of the Richardson Foundation, her hands resting on her growing belly as she watched Timothy help her research assistant organize data from their latest clinical trial. Their treatment protocols were now being used in 47 hospitals worldwide, helping hundreds of children achieve mobility and independence their parents had never dreamed possible. Marcus appeared in the lab doorway, still wearing his suit from a board meeting, but with his tie loosened and his sleeves rolled up, the look of a man who'd learned to balance professional success with personal happiness. "How are my 3 favorite people today?" he asked, kissing Emma's cheek and ruffling Timothy's hair with equal affection. "Timothy's been helping me calculate success rates," Emma replied, her hand automatically finding Marcus's as they watched their son. Brilliant, confident, and walking without any assistance. Explained statistical analysis with the enthusiasm of someone who'd inherited both parents' intelligence and determination. And baby sister is practicing her soccer kicks. Timothy announced, placing his small hand on Emma's belly with the gentle reverence of an older brother already deeply in love with his sibling. Marcus knelt beside his family, his hand joining Timothy's on Emma's stomach, marveling at the life growing there, a life that represented not just their biological connection, but everything they'd overcome to build this extraordinary partnership. "We're going to have to expand the lab," Emma said with mock seriousness. "Between Timothy's research assistants and this little one's eventual contributions to pediatric medicine, we're going to need more space." "Boom. Whatever you need," Marcus replied. And Emma knew he meant it with the same absolute commitment he'd shown when he'd fought to clear her name, when he'd proposed to their entire family, when he'd stood beside her through every challenge and triumph since that day in Rosie's diner. Looking at her husband, her son, and the foundation they'd built together, Dr. Emma Sinclair understood that miracles weren't just medical breakthroughs or unexpected recoveries. Sometimes miracles were simply love that refused to give up. Trust that survived betrayal and second chances that transformed not just individuals, but entire families, communities, and ultimately the world itself. Outside the lab windows, the city spread before them like a promise, a place where a waitress could become a respected doctor again, where a guarded CEO could learn to trust completely, where a little boy's need for healing could bring together 2 broken hearts and make them whole. The miracle touch that had started it all lived on, not just in Emma's healing hands, but in every life their love had transformed, every challenge they'd overcome together, and every hope they held for the future. They would continue building one act of courage and compassion at a time.